My brother and I have always been intrigued by the unexplainable. Like many, we're fascinated with stories of the supernatural, fringe science, and modern-day mysteries.
Though we've seen no first-hand proof of its existence, our minds remain open to the possibility.
Unsatisfied with the so-called evidence on television and the internet, we are choosing to take matters into our own hands and conduct our own interviews and research.
Now we're on a quest to speak with as many people as we can and hear the stories of these events from those who have lived them.
No Hollywood effects or exaggerations, and no hidden agenda. We invite you to listen and decide what and who you believe.
We are the Brothers Mysterium.
Hello and welcome to the Brothers Mysterium. My name is Tommy. This is the Brothers Mysterium, the #1 rated commercial-free paranormal podcast on the planet. And before we jump into today's episode, why don't you jump on whatever podcast provider you're using right now to listen to this and rate and review the show. And while you're at it, head on over to facebook.com/The Brothers Mysterium, give us a like, and follow us on our other social media at Mysterium Bros on both Twitter and Instagram. And joining me today, special guest co-host, the man known as Axe. Axe, welcome to the Brothers Mysterium.
What's up, Tommy? Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And now I've known you for a good while, a long time, but obviously the listeners do not know you. So some introductory questions so they can get kind of a vibe when it comes to you and the supernatural, the paranormal. So my first question is, have you ever had a paranormal, supernatural, unexplainable experience in your life?
Well, what does that mean exactly, paranormal experience? Like a dream?
Well, we're going to say it could be some sort of a dream. It could be, that's kind of the fun. It could be anything. I mean, the classics are a UFO. Were you ever abducted by aliens? Have you ever seen a ghost?
I've never seen a ghost, no. I've had a lot of weird dreams in my life. Not many have been connected to anything that I can think of. A lot of creepy, recurring dreams. I do at times have control of some dreams. I did have this one dream, and I know what we're talking about today, so I guess I'll bring this up, even though, a lot of the stories that we're talking about today, right, are definitely on the creepy side because they deal with death, right, for the most part?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know if this is considered paranormal. Is it considered paranormal if it doesn't deal with death, but it's more predicting something, and it's way lighter?
Absolutely, yeah. We've done an episode on precognitive dreams, which were just sort of dreams that then come to fruition when you're awake and stuff. I'm intrigued now, so let's hear your dream experience.
Sure. So I had this dream back when I was in college, all right? My family at the time had a German short-haired pointer dog, big guy named Max, right?
Okay.
We had one of those, and I had this dream when I was in college and away from home. The dog was at home with my parents and family. I'm away at college. I have a dream one night that our dog Max is swimming around in a pool. He doesn't have any back legs, so he's got like a tadpole tail, which is weird. It has nothing to do with anything.
Strange, but okay.
He's swimming around, and then another German short-haired pointer jumps in the pool with him. Starts swimming around with, same thing, tadpole tail. They're swimming around together, having fun. And I didn't really talk to my parents much in college, so I had no idea. But the next day, I call home, and my parents, just on a whim, went out and picked up another German short-haired pointer dog that day. So that is as light as you can get as far as...
The same night you had the dream, they just purchased a second dog, the exact dog you dreamt of.
I actually called home or something, I think, and I asked for them. I think my sister said, they went to some state to go look at a dog or to pick up a dog or something. Another one of these same dogs, and they came home with it that day. And I always thought that was strange, but that's obviously, it doesn't deal with death, but
But
I
it's
think
still
that's as close as I get.
it's perfect though because brings up both sides of the coin, which is there something in the universe, some consciousness that you were able to pick up on the fact that they were getting a dog, they had gotten a dog, even though you weren't home and you got the exact dog? Or is it simply a coincidence? I mean, the dog was a regular dog. It was not a tadpole dog. The dog's legs weren't horribly amputated or anything. So the dream wasn't 100% right. Thank God, because that'd be a creepy-ass dog. But that is kind of a good
Dude, if
scenario.
the next day I called home and they were like, "You're not going to believe this, but Max, he lost his legs overnight. He's now got a tadpole tail."
Cross amputated with a fish.
That would be quite the premonition.
Now that's a premonition.
And he won't get out of the pool. He will not get out of the pool.
Well, he's half tadpole now. He's a tad dog, a dog pole.
Yeah, a dog pole sounds good.
So having that experience and just sort of in general, I guess, when you hear other people saying, "Oh, I saw a ghost, I did this," are you a believer? Are you open-minded when it comes to the supernatural, the paranormal? Or do you think it's mostly just sort of made up lore, legend, fairy tales? Where do you fall on the spectrum?
I would say probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, I'm somewhat open-minded, but I think I believe that a lot of it can be explained in other ways, but I don't automatically discredit any of it. So I think I look at, any stories like that with trying to come up with other things it could be other than the paranormal, but
Right.
I'm open to it.
Yeah. So you're what we call a healthy skeptic. You're going to ask the questions because maybe it can easily be explained, or even with a little bit of digging can be explained. But if not, you're not one to immediately just be like, "Oh, that's made up, that's fake, you're lying." So that's cool.
Yeah.
Here's the toughest question I've been asking all of the co-hosts. What do you think, and there's no right or wrong answer, it's your own personal philosophy, what do you think happens when we die?
Oof.
It's a big question.
I actually really do believe that there's something out there when we die. As crazy as it sounds when I say it. I tend to not believe in things that I can't envision
Okay.
in some way, and I can't envision just nothing for you when you pass. So I've never been someone who I just can't envision that, so I can't really believe in it. So I do believe there's something out there, and I hope there is.
Sure. Do you have any idea of what that something might be, or it's just open-ended, you think there's something?
I have no idea what it might be. I mean, I guess I always envision it as, it's not like, you're not like in heaven or, enjoying various ice cream flavors all day or surrounded by a harem or anything. But I think like you're around and you can see, you can sort of be where you want to be, whether it's with people that you loved, and you can just oversee and see what's going on in some sort of way. I think that's how I've always just envisioned it, possibly.
Yeah, obviously.
Like floating
there's
above
no way to
in
know.
the sky.
Yeah.
I
I gotcha.
What about you?
Very cool. I go back and forth depending on the day. Sometimes I'm like, there's got to be more. Listening to all these different stories from people always convinces me like there must be something. As I always say, how can so many people have so many stories with so many similarities? And then other times, sometimes I'm like, hey, maybe it's just game over. They put you in the dirt or whatever, and your time was here, and now it's gone. So I don't really know. It's like a pendulum with me, where I go back and forth.
Yeah, I do remember now just talking to you this one story really quick.
Sure.
Good friend of mine in high school, his father passed away in high school from cancer. And I don't know why this is coming to me now, but we were sitting Shiva at their house right after the funeral. And it was nighttime, and there were a lot of people in there. And it could have just been someone doing it by accident, but the lights kept like going on and off, like 2 or 3 times over the hour that I was there. And I remember my friend's mom mentioning that her husband, who passed, used to love doing that, to like just mess with them. And so
Spooky.
that comes to mind. A little spooky, you know.
Yeah.
Could have easily been someone's ass hitting the light switch.
Classic.
You know, a couple times. Who knows?
Classic butt switch.
Right. The classic bump into the light switch.
Could be the drunk uncle.
But I remember them specifically thinking they were like, oh, they thought that was something.
Yeah, it could be his little final goodbye, a little wink at them, let them know he's still around.
I've always wondered, like, if you can do that kind of stuff, why isn't it happening like way more often? You know?
Yeah, and I always sort of wonder. So say that he is there, his spirit is there. They can't see him, but he's able to, however he does it, create enough energy, manifest himself to flick a light switch. Like, couldn't he do something better? Couldn't he get a pen and write his name? Couldn't he? You know, I don't know, just something more concrete so they couldn't say, wasn't that just, Aunt Martha's ass keeps hitting the light switch over there. Wouldn't he do something that's like, boom, I'm here?
Yeah.
But again, I guess we don't really know how it works.
And for those of us who have had, people that we really loved pass away, and they haven't done anything for us.
Right.
That we know of. Well, what does that mean? They don't love us that much? Or?
Yeah. They don't have the training yet. They're still trying to learn how to master the light
right.
the light switch ability.
Right.
So who knows?
Maybe they don't want to have that weigh on us.
Yeah. Maybe they don't want to scare
you. They want us
you.
to move on. Who knows?
Who knows? I call it ghostivation, the motivation of a ghost, which I always wonder. To your point, some people will say, like, my dear sweet grandma died, and then the bed was shaking and the mirrors were exploding, and I'm always like. And they're like, it must have been my grandma. And I'm like, well, why would your grandma decide she's going to come back in such a terrorizing way to just scare
why would
you?
she do that
Like,
to
it
you?
doesn't fit her character. What would her motivation? If she wants to say, like, I'm here, to your point, she'd do a little, inside joke, flicking the lights like she used to. She'd leave a little something on your pillow. She'd move something she gave you. But sometimes people...
Maybe she'd bake you like a pie or something.
Exactly. Or you'd smell the pie. But yeah, sometimes people have these insane stories and they're like, that was probably grandma. And I'm like, but why though? Why? But who are we to question the dead?
Why did grandma hate you? Grandma hated you.
Your grandma was not, maybe she thinks she killed her, depending on what went down with grandma. Well, we've spoken about death. The topic on today's show is going to be death omens, which a lot of people may not have heard of, but it's basically a harbinger of death, some sort of symbol, a sign, a warning that someone or you yourself will soon pass away. There are all different types of omens from all different cultures across the world. I'm going to rip through some quickly here. And some are kind of simple warning signs. Some of the more common ones are a picture that falls off the wall for no reason, especially if the glass in the picture breaks, clocks that suddenly stop or clocks that fail to chime, seeing a falling star, which I always thought was a good thing because you want to make a wish on it, but I guess if the star has a death wish for you, you're out of luck. Dreaming of muddy water, a mirror that breaks while it is still on the wall. Some people, especially in Europe, say seeing the wild hunt, which is when you're out in the woods and suddenly you'll see these ghostly figures on horseback come riding through, often with like dogs, as if they're hunting something. Some people say you'll see them actually in the sky. A very common one is seeing a doppelganger, which is sort of an apparition, but it's a living person, so it's almost like I would see you, outside, and we'd talk, and then I'd text you and be like, that was so weird, and you'd be like, dude, I'm in Milwaukee. Or some people say they'll actually see themselves, which is super weird. Seeing a woman in white, saying a dead person's name while you're ill, which I've never heard of that before. Hearing a mournful cry or howl, often a banshee, is who they say is howling. Seeing the new moon through glass, which people look out windows, I know about that one. Spook lights, also known as corpse lights, which are small blue balls of light. They float around. Sometimes it's a flame, but that definitely reminds me of all of the videos on YouTube and stuff where people say, like, look at this light cruising around, which everybody else says it's dust. Seeing a ghost funeral or driving by a cemetery and you see ghosts attending a funeral.
What?
Weird, right?
I mean, that, like, in real life, you see that?
You would, like, drive by, right, you look out the window and you see what appears to be like ghosts, but they're all standing around.
I would say if you see that, there's a problem.
That's not normal. The light going out at dinner, I'm sure that's happened to people almost kind of like what you were describing. It didn't go out during dinner, but some people say if your left eye twitches, which I don't believe that because I think everybody would be dead or know someone who died immediately. Hearing knocking at the door when no one is there. When a healthy plant suddenly withers and dies for no reason. Hearing bells in your ears, which is often the heralding the death of someone else. Some people say dreaming of a wedding or a birth, or dreaming of falling. Often, they say, means you will die in your sleep. I dream of falling all the time, and I've yet to die in my sleep.
Don't they say that if you're falling in a dream and you actually fall and hit the ground, you would die?
I've heard that as well. Yeah, usually you sort of jerk awake before impact.
Right. Like you
yeah.
saved yourself.
You saved yourself. Yeah, I don't know if I know anybody who's dreamt to the point where they smashed into the ground. It would be interesting to know what happened in your
Right.
dream at
That's
that point.
Right before you hit the ground, that's when you literally jump in your bed,
Exactly.
embarrassingly.
It's never, it's hard to look cool when you yelp yourself awake, screaming and twitching. Another common one are death visions, which many times the omen is a dream of a loved one who either you have the dream and then find out that they died recently, or you dream of someone who is dead. When you're awake, because a lot of weird things happen when dreaming, it's believed that if a person is about to die, they will kind of look around and start talking to people. No one else can see them. Usually it's somebody who's ill, who's sick, maybe if there was like a horrific car crash or something. And there are a lot of different theories on who they're talking to. Is it Jesus? Is it angels coming to guide them? Is it family members, friends that have already passed and helping them kind of transition? Obviously, skeptics say it's nothing. It's kind of your brain dying, shutting down, your life's flashing before your eyes. So you start talking to nobody, or they're sort of like talking to God or whoever might be there, just sort of as a last-ditch effort as they're
That's
unaware
how they
of
explain,
where they are.
That's how they explain like the white light too, right?
Exactly. Yep. They say it's kind of, it's a lot of people actually have that a similar sort of tunnel effect when they just pass out or black out as well. But they do say it's like,
I've had that. Yeah.
yeah, it's lack of oxygen. An interesting one is known as the good day, which is that an ill person will suddenly have a very good day or a few days in a row where they're able to get up, walk around, they feel fantastic, they're talking, they're laughing, and people are usually like, wow, they really turned a corner, and then they'll die almost immediately after, which is scary. And then, yes, that's a chilling one just because it's like, oh, this is great, I feel good, I'm out, I'm about, and then you're dead. And then there's a ton that involve animals, such as a white moth getting into your house or attempting to get in, a wild bird getting in your house. If the first lamb of the year is born and it's a black lamb, a bird flying into a window and dying, which happened all the time when I was a kid. We had a big sliding glass door. I don't remember anybody dying shortly after. Hearing the Death Watch beetle in your home, hearing horse hooves or a carriage going by when there obviously is none, seeing a lone horse, seeing a black dog was a very popular one, especially if it had glowing eyes, and they are known as a death dog or black shuck. Seeing an owl through a window, which sounds kind of dumb. An owl flying around your house 3 times. Seeing a single crow or a raven perched on a house. Dogs howling at an open door or howling for no reason during the night, which anybody that has a dog, their dog's probably done that. Seeing an owl in the daytime. Seeing a lone fox near your home. If a bird flies down your chimney. A cat that leaves the house and refuses to re-enter. Birds pecking at a window. White rabbits, swarming bees, magpies, black cats are all considered death omens. A lot of that...
These are dreams, right?
No, this is in real life.
In real life, okay.
All in real life, these things happening. To me, it sounds more like superstition. I don't put too much credence in any of those. It's like, I just feel like, you're going to see an owl through a window because unless you're outside, that's the only other way to see it. Black cats, everybody says they're bad luck. They're familiars, they're witches, animals. But like I grew up with black cats. They crossed my path 100 times a day. I never had bad luck or anything. Do you put any stock into any of those sort of more common death omens?
I mean, Tommy, you listed like 85 of them. So
I sure did.
I think that there were probably a few here and there that maybe. I mean, I know there were some new ones I've never heard, and
Yeah.
obviously we all know like the black cat and
Right.
broken mirrors and
Stuff like that.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
Pictures
I'm
falling.
gonna read all 85 again, and if one strikes you as
Yeah,
being true, just tell me.
Go through the second half for me. If
Yeah,
you don't mind.
I'll just hit the last 43.
I checked out from like 32 to 64.
Oh, okay. So that leaves us at I believe it was hearing 3 knocks at the door.
The whole time I'm just like, how long is this list going to go?
It's the next hour of the episode. When it comes to animals, we did on episode 17, Paranormal Pets, we did talk about Oscar the cat. And what was interesting here was the cat was actually written up in the New England Journal of Medicine because it was a therapy cat in the Steer House Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Providence. And the cat had a unbelievably high accuracy rate at going and sitting with someone laying on their bed, and then that person would die. So there's a big study where people were saying, this cat has this sense, this ability to know when someone will pass. And is that paranormal, supernatural? Or was it like, because it's a cat, it has heightened sense of smell, maybe it's smelling biochemical release of dying cells or something like that.
Oh, so the cat was choosing which beds to lay on?
Yes, the cat would sort of wander through this rehabilitation center, and if it went and stayed on your bed, that person would almost always die. It would like pick out.
Weren't the people in the beds freaking out when the cat came up to them?
You would think so. I mean, that's not a very good therapy cat if its therapy is bringing you death.
Like, oh no, here she comes.
I would lock the door and not let the cat in.
Right, yeah.
But people
get
do
rid of that
wonder.
cat.
Exactly. So are these animals, as we just heard about 30, animals as death omens? So is it the animals themselves? Is it more that, are they more connected to nature? So maybe they can just sense death is coming? Is that the warning? Who knows? But let's jump into our first story, which involves an animal and a possible death omen. I put the call out on Twitter to see if anybody had a good story, and Sarah from Connecticut answered the call. Her story involved crows.
Hi, so I was in college. It was 2016 when my grandma eventually passed. But the months leading up to it, a month or so leading up to it, we knew that she was deteriorating in health. And we knew like her time was coming, but we all collectively knew, but we didn't say it out loud. But I would be walking from campus to campus and I would just see crows, and I didn't think anything of it until I started my spiritual journey into witchcraft and the occult and everything else. And that's when I was like, that's a little weird. And then I have a Snapchat video of me sending a video of all my friends, this one instance where it was this large amount of crows just chilling out on the branches. And at this point, I think the leaves had fallen off. It was one of those like really cold Octobers, and it was interesting to say the very least. But they were on the trees, they were up at the top of the roof on one of the buildings, and it was clear that they were all congregating together. And it was really, it was a little unsettling actually, now that I'm thinking of it. But it was kind of just like it clearly was a sign for something. It was very strange. And then eventually later, my grandma ended up passing.
So that was Sarah's story about a month before her grandma passed away. Her grandma's doing pretty good, but they know, at some point she's probably going to pass. And then while walking from campus to campus, Sarah is just seeing tons and tons of crows. So many, she makes a little video, which we will post on the Brothers Mysterium, Instagram and Twitter at Mysterium Bros, as well as Facebook.com/The Brothers Mysterium. But about 2 or 3 weeks after she sees just these crows everywhere, keeps seeing them, very high frequency, her grandma passes away. What do you make of this, Axe?
I mean, honestly, I have a lot of doubt about this one. I just think that her knowing that her grandmother was about to pass for several weeks, right, or for about a month,
Yeah.
And I just feel like when you're going through something like that and you're expecting it and it's on your mind all the time, that when you see crows, you just notice them more and attach them to something like that.
Right.
Where I think when everything's going great in your life, there might be crows, but you don't think anything of it,
The classic example is a blue car. Like if I'm like, look for a blue car, you'll suddenly see 100 blue cars everywhere, but it's because you're looking for them.
Right.
So to your point, there's probably crows all the time, but knowing this, or even in hindsight, maybe, well, she did stop and take the Snapchat video. So I guess I can't say it's like after her grandma died, then she looked back and was like, there were all those crows. Maybe that was a sign. I guess she did realize it before.
Yeah, but she knew that her grandmother was sick.
Right. That's a good point.
Right. And she knew with every passing day she was getting close. Like, it seems like her grandmother was very close to passing and everyone knew.
Yeah, it seemed inevitable.
So, yeah, if I'm walking around like that and I see a lot of crows everywhere, I'm probably going to, think like, it's all these crows. But like at my house, I've had tons of crows in the trees. And I mean, I want them to leave, but
right.
if everything's going well, like I don't think too much into it. Maybe
Yeah.
in hindsight, if something happened, I'd be like, "Oh, wow, those crows were in my tree yesterday."
Right.
But she had such a unique experience going through several weeks of knowing someone's about to pass. To me, it's not that surprising that she might just notice those crows more that maybe are there more often than she realizes when everything is going fine.
Sure, that's a definite possibility. And I'm not going to dedicate the time to look into this, but I wonder too, could it have just been like the migration pattern of the crows, depending where her campus was?
Right.
Is that like
Yeah.
a breeding area? Is there a natural scientific explanation as to why there are that many crows there that time of year or something like that, which could be...
You'd have to do a whole study, right? Like
We'd have to put a lot of time and money into this crow research.
You'd have to live on that campus. Or where was she? She was at school?
She was in Connecticut at a college that was unnamed to protect the crows that lurk there.
I mean, listen, if you were there for a whole year and there were never crows and they were there for those couple weeks, I mean...
And it's something.
That tells you something, but
yeah,
I guess we'll never know.
We'll never know. An interesting story and a good first story to kind of kick us off. Let's jump into this next story from Richard, which is a little harder to explain.
The Brothers Mysterium.
My name's Richard. I'm 25 years old, and I'm from South Central Pennsylvania. This all takes place about 13 years ago, when I was 12 years old. My great uncle had been diagnosed with throat cancer. He chewed for most of his life, and it finally caught up to him. This particular day, my aunt and I were over helping take care of his house, just get everything ready because he wanted it to be sold as soon as he passed away. She was taking care of cleaning up the inside. I was mowing the lawn, and he was having a particularly good day, so he was out working in his garden. I got done mowing the lawn, sat down to take a break on the front porch, when I hear galloping coming down the dirt lane in front of his house. Look, I see a white horse slow to a trot in front of the house, look over at me, and take off again, going further down the dirt lane. This struck me as odd, because this was not a normal farm horse. This looked like a show horse. Not something that any of the local farmers probably had. So I went inside and I told my aunt, told my great uncle, and they said, go ahead and take the four-wheeler, see if any of the neighbors were missing a horse. So I go, start up the four-wheeler, and head over to the neighbor's house. It was an Amish farmer. And I asked him, are you missing a white horse? He said, no, we don't own any white horses. And I told him about what had just happened, and he said he'd go saddle up one of his own and head off down that way, see if he could see it, possibly catch it, and keep it at his place until animal control could come by and pick it up or do whatever they could do to help. So I told them, okay, go ahead and do that. And I head over to the next nearest farm. They said they weren't missing any horses. Same for the next two. The last one I stopped at, though, said that he did have a white horse. So he goes out to his stable to check, but it's there. At that point, I knew that it would have been a bit of a waste to go to any of the further out farms, because it's about 5 miles to the next one, and I highly doubt that if it was from somebody's farm, that it could have made it that far and still been in such good shape. So I head back towards my great-uncle's house. On the way back, I pass the first man that I went to. The man who owned the first farm. And he said that he saw the tracks going past my great-uncle's house. But for as far as he could see, he did not see a white horse. And it was fall. The leaves were down, so it would have been pretty easy to spot from a distance. But he couldn't find him. So it had been about 45 minutes at the most that I was gone. So I go back to the house to tell my great-uncle and my aunt what had happened, that we couldn't find it, and that it wasn't missing from any of the nearby farms. But when I got back, my aunt was just coming outside. She stopped me and said that my great-uncle had passed. Again, it had only been about 45 minutes since I had left, and he was having such a good day. It really, really caught me off guard. I really don't know how to explain any of what happened that day. I mean, I've never been a person to have overactive imagination. I know that I saw that horse. And even the first Amish guy that I was saying about, he said that he saw the tracks, but couldn't find the horse. At the time, I had never heard of the whole superstition or omen that a lone white horse meant that there was going to be a death in the family. I had never heard that until about 5 years ago. And as soon as I heard that, that moment just snapped back into my mind. And I really didn't know what to think. It hasn't convinced me of the existence of the paranormal. It has, however, really piqued my interest, and it was like a gateway, just wanting to research this kind of stuff, similar to what you guys do. And it alone, I don't think it really changed my mind from being a skeptic, but it has definitely opened my mind to the possibility of something else being out there.
So great story there from Richard. Sees this lone, beautiful white horse. Important that it's not just a horse. He's like, this is like an incredible, great-looking horse. He knew it couldn't have escaped from too far or been running around too long because it was just too clean, too pure-looking. And it's interesting. A lot of weird things going on here. What do you make of this story?
I mean, that was a great one. You could totally see everything that he was saying. You could envision it.
Yeah.
Obviously, he spoke about the white horse, the sounds of the horse walking, right? The hooves. Is that how you say it? The hooves walking?
The hooves trotting, galloping.
The hooves galloping. And you mentioned both of those, I think, right? In your list.
Yes, correct.
In your extensive list. I thought it was really interesting. I had a couple questions. Remind me, did he say he was 12 when he saw this?
He was just a young kid out mowing the lawn when it all went down.
Yeah. So listen, it was definitely interesting. I mean, is it believable to me? Like, do I think? I don't know. I think there are some questions that you have to ask. One, Richard is on this expansive farm, right, with his great uncle and aunt, preparing the house to be sold after his great uncle passes, which is very dark, right?
Yeah.
The great uncle is basically planning. He's trying to make everything easy for everyone, so they're getting the house ready for when he passes away, which is crazy.
Right.
And another interesting. Before I go, another interesting part of this is that day he was having a great day, which is another thing on your list, right?
Yes, it was. I was going to say that as well. Yeah, he had such a good day. He's outside gardening, so that's
right.
It fits that good day omen. Definitely in this case. Besides the horse, seeing a horse, hearing a horse, and a good day. So he's three omens of death, which is not good.
Right. So it fits. It checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
But what I was saying was, okay, Richard was 12 years old. He's on this farm with his great uncle and aunt. There's probably not much out there. I'm envisioning a lot of emptiness.
Right.
Richard's out there all day mowing the lawn in the heat, right? I'm assuming you're hearing a lot of things. I'm just going to throw some doubt in there because he's the only one who saw it, right? He went to all these other farms. No one could see it.
Well, the neighbor saw horse tracks.
Yeah, but what is that?
Did not see the
there's
horse.
probably horse tracks all over the place, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously other horses in the area because people checked
Right.
and said, like, no, my white horse is here. I have other horses, not a white horse. So, yeah.
I mean, it's crazy that he came back from all this and his great uncle passed away, which is nuts.
Right, about 45 minutes after the horse first appeared. So, yeah, very shortly after, which is creepy.
That does make you think that maybe there's something there, right? And he wasn't just... if he was imagined, like I was going along the lines of, he's exhausted out there in the heat, mowing the lawn, and you can see things, kind of like if you're in a desert, right? You can start...
The old mirage.
Just seeing something. Yeah, you see a mirage of a horse out there. Does he know at that age that's what that horse symbolizes? Probably not.
He does say, actually, afterwards, he had said he had never heard of a legend or a lone horse or anything. So, which I always find interesting because it's like, kind of like if you tell somebody like, hey, we're going to go in this house, but it's haunted, so be careful, then they're more likely to be like, I feel something weird, man. I don't know. I think I just saw a ghost. If you don't say anything, and then people are like, there's a weird vibe in here, then it's more legit. So it's not like he had heard this unless you could say like subconsciously he heard it in the background and never knew. But he said he was unaware of this. He looked it up after, and then he was like, oh, damn, that's crazy. Where he said a strange connection was in the book of Revelations, death, out of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, death rides on a pale horse, which I thought was kind of biblical and creepy in its own right, that this beautiful white horse supposedly is, trots on past, stops, looks at him, keeps on going, and then 45 minutes later, his great uncle passes. So, but yeah, he did say he was unfamiliar with it at the time, which is interesting.
Yeah, but honestly, what I was saying was even if he had a mirage, right, that still could be something. The horse doesn't physically need to be there, right? He could see it just like someone might see a ghost.
Sure.
The ghost isn't there, or maybe it is, I don't know. But even if he's seeing a mirage of a white horse and he's hearing the galloping and then his uncle passes away 45 minutes later.
Right.
I mean, that's something in itself, right? Even if it was in his mind.
Right. Yeah, which again, maybe...
So it's an interest. It's interesting.
Yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe that's a cool theory too. Maybe it wasn't a physical horse, but it was, like you said, almost a ghost horse, which makes it, in a way, even creepier.
Right.
So that was an interesting one. Let's move on now from animals. We're going to hit, I had said, many cultures, many customs have their own stories. One of the more popular, maybe the most popular, death omen, harbinger of death, is from Ireland, the banshee, a female spirit in Irish folklore who heralds the death of a family member or a loved one by wailing, shrieking, screaming. So our next story comes from Ireland, compliments of Rosie, who had herself a little banshee encounter. So let's listen to Rosie's experience.
Way back when I was about 7 or 8, that was when I had my first experience with the banshee. One night when I was asleep in bed, I was having a pretty normal ass dream when everything went blank. Just everything. It was just kind of like a white room. And in this room with me was an old lady who had grey, very messy hair, was very kind of dirty looking, long nails, old-fashioned clothes, everything like that. And she walked up to me and she looked like she'd been crying, and I was like, what the hell? And she handed me an envelope, and in this envelope was a picture of my uncle. And this really confused me, and when I looked back at her, she just started laughing hysterically, just echoing. And this was the moment I woke up from my dream. And of course when you wake up from a dream you expect it to end. But no. So when I woke up, the hysterical laughter was still echoing throughout the room. And of course I thought this was that dream thing where your dreams kind of overlap with reality and you haven't fully woken up yet. But I looked at the end of my bed and there was a woman sitting there, quite young woman, but I couldn't see her face, just sitting at the end of my bed with long black hair and just brushing it. And it seemed like the laughter was coming from her, and I was terrified. So I kind of stayed in the room for about 5 minutes because I thought, of course it's a dream, it's overlapped, I'll wake up or it will go away in a little bit, but it didn't. So I kind of just made a beeline for the door and just ran for it and went and got my parents and told them what happened, and of course they were like, it's a nightmare, blah blah, it's fine. And then I refused to sleep in my room for the next week. I stayed in the spare room. It was like, no, not going in there. But within 24 hours of me having that dream, my uncle, who I saw in my dream in the photo, was pronounced dead in hospital, which was very creepy. And the creepy thing is that the time I woke up from the dream was the exact time he died. So that was fun. I don't know whether I believe in the banshee or not. I don't know if I believe in a lot of the folklore in Ireland, but I will admit that was a very creepy moment in my life.
So that was Rosie's experience. She was 7 or 8, having what she calls a normal ass dream, which I appreciate the descriptor. When boom, the dreamscape changes, becomes blank. It's just sort of nothingness except for this creepy old lady who she describes very well. And the old lady is just kind of crying. And then there's a lot of levels to this. Usually a banshee, you just hear it. She sees it. It's in her dream. So we have to keep that in mind. But this crying lady hands her an envelope. She opens it, and inside is a photo of her uncle. The banshee was not shrieking. She was crying, looked like she'd been crying. And then all of a sudden there's this hysterical laughter that's echoing. Rosie wakes up and can still hear the echoed laughter in her room, which this reminds me of sleep paralysis, where people will kind of wake up, their mind will wake up before their body, so they can't move, they're paralyzed in their body, but oftentimes they'll report seeing things or even feeling a pressure on their chest or seeing like a goblin, a demon, something on their chest. So this kind of is in that realm where she wakes up, but it's super creepy that the laughter carries over from her dream into her being awake, where she looks at the edge of her bed and sees a different woman, younger, long black hair. She's brushing it, and she says she is the source of this laughter. So I don't know if it's a different woman. I mean, it could be the same banshee who's gone from her dream and changed form and is now sitting at the edge of her bed. So then she says she waited like 5 minutes. She's like, I'm going to wake up. This is going to stop. It's going to go away. I'll get more awake. And it never stops. So finally she gets the courage. She just bolts for her parents' room. So a lot to unpack here. You know, was this just a nightmare? Was she still asleep when she thought she was awake? She definitely was freaked out. She said she didn't sleep in her room for like a week. And then the thing that ties it all together, 24 hours later, the uncle who was in that photo in her dream was pronounced dead. And it was at the same time that she woke up from that dream. So if she woke up at, 7:15 a.m., 24 hours later at 7:15 a.m., they pronounce her uncle dead. So A lot going on here. What did you make of this one, Axe?
Oof. So she was 7 or 8, right? I feel
Yes.
bad. I feel like I'm just doubting everything right now, but
Hey, you got to keep it real.
got to keep it real. Did she say at the top of it that this was her first experience with a banshee?
Yes,
Yeah, so she's had more than one since then?
I would assume so. I could try to look into that.
Yeah, and I think that's worth looking into. I mean, I got some questions. Is it possible that she woke up from her dream, right? She woke up from she didn't wake up from the old woman laughing dream, but she just woke up in a dream to another dream. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the classic.
You know how you do that?
Fake
Like
wake
you
up.
wake-
It's like Inception, where you're in layers and layers of dreams. So yeah, maybe she
Right.
woke up from the first dream. I guess the thing that gets me is she did say she waited like 5 minutes for it to stop before she just ran to her parents. So unless she was still kind of half asleep, 5 minutes is a long time.
Well, she doesn't know that it was 5 minutes, does she?
Yeah, that's true. And
And-
I guess at that point you're so disoriented and creeped out, she could have easily just woken up and bolted right to her parents' room.
And she was 7 years old or 8 years old.
was
I mean,
young. She was young.
That's really young. My son is 7, and
What is he doing? He's attacked by banshees.
for the first time a few weeks ago, he like had a dream. His first dream, he told me.
Oh, wow.
Before then, I would always ask him about dreams. He didn't even. I would say, like, do you ever, like, at night when you fall asleep, you like see things, or I tried to explain what a dream was, and he had definitely never had one or remembered having one.
Yeah.
So it is, I mean, for someone at 7 or 8 years old to unpack like all that, and was it a dream? She was dreaming and then she woke up. I mean, she could have still been in a dream at that age. Who knows?
Right.
She doesn't. That's complicated for us to figure out.
Yeah, that's
Us
tough.
old men. so and then to have the wherewithal to know that she was up for 5 minutes and then went running to her parents, and then to know exactly what time she woke up.
Right.
Even though all that was going on, and then 24 hours later, exactly at the time she woke up, I don't know exactly what time I wake up unless I have an alarm set,
Yeah. I mean, I guess we
that
can
her-
assume she looked at the clock maybe while she was trying not to look at the creepy woman brushing her hair and laughing. But
At 7?
yeah, I don't know.
It's a lot.
It is definitely a lot.
There was a lot of doubt with that one for me.
So then here's my question. Say that the banshee was just a dream. She still dreamt of this envelope with a photo of her uncle, who then died the next day unexpectedly. From what we gather, she didn't say he was like ill and in the hospital. How would you describe or explain that away?
No, I mean, that's absolutely true. And that, maybe I'm overlooking that part of it, which maybe is the most important part. I'm stuck on all these details that really don't matter. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could just say, even if she just had a dream and there was a photo of her uncle that fell, right, which is another one of your omens, right?
Yeah.
And that uncle passed away 24 hours later. Yeah, I can't explain it. I mean, that's crazy if that happened. It's...
I mean, in a way, that kind of ties back to your dog, tadpole dog dream, though, where it's like, is it a coincidence? You dream of people that you know. Like, what are the odds that she would dream of him 24 hours before he died? What are the odds you would dream of your parents having a second dog? And it was that night was the day they went and got a dog without you knowing it. So it's like, but it's so specific, and it's so obviously the death is a bigger deal than a new dog. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of easy. Whenever anything's a dream, it's sort of easy to be like, well, you were just dreaming. But then when it comes true, or this creepy lady hands you an envelope, you pull out this photo, and then that person passes away. That's like, again, it's tough to debunk something like that.
It's tough. You always lean towards asking questions like, is this uncle someone she thinks about often?
Right.
Is he a big part of her life? Was he just there that night?
Yeah.
Did she take a photo of him?
Right.
Like, or is it totally just such not a coincidence, but it's just so random because it's someone she doesn't see a lot. She doesn't think about a lot, which I think makes it more crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it gives you fewer ways to explain, what she dreamed.
Right, exactly. And we have done precognitive dreams on the show before, and we've had people share dreams that were premonitions of death. We have many different examples. People dreaming of someone who then dies the next day or that morning. We had Dan on episode 10, Dream Visitations, where he talked about when he had the dream of his uncle on the porch, and then his parents wake him up, or his mom wakes him up, and she says, "Oh, your uncle passed away." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I know. I just had a dream about him."
The brothers Mysterio.
So I'm already getting the goosebumps just thinking about this story, just recollecting it. But when I was younger, about 17, 18, my aunt had passed away. And a week later, I went to sleep. I'm having a dream about my aunt sitting on a porch, just rocking back and forth and just waving to me. And then in that dream, my uncle appeared, a separate uncle, not her husband, but a separate family uncle, appeared and started waving to me from the porch right next to her. So I wake up, just a total normal thing, like the dream had just happened in the morning. So I wake up, my mom opens the door, she's like, "Dan, are you awake?" And I was like, yeah, what's going on? She's like, your Uncle John has passed away. And I went, "I know." Like, I was like still kind of in that dream. I was like, "Yeah, I know." She's like, "What do you mean you know?" I said, "I just had a dream that he was just sitting on a porch with my aunt waving."
Wow.
Yeah. So that was freaky. But like as soon as she said your uncle has passed, I immediately, yeah, I know. I just saw him.
As you became more awake, were you then more and more scared and surprised by the fact that this had happened?
Oh, because it was just my initial reaction was to answer her question with that. But yeah, as soon as I started thinking about it, I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then I started thinking, because you could hear things through the house. Like maybe I overheard them as I was waking up that morning talking about my Uncle John, but they weren't talking about it. No one was there for it.
So there's no way that it subconsciously slipped in your dream. This was just sort of a dream visitation.
Yes.
And they looked happy waving from the
porch? Yeah,
porch?
they were. I think they were like drinking like iced teas and stuff. Like it was like a sunny day, sitting on a porch, clear as day, just waving to me. And it's like, oh, hey.
And what was the relation between your aunt and uncle? Were they brother and sister? Were they?
No. It was like they were like, you know how sometimes you call your parents' friends aunts, whoever. Yeah. So it was like that type of aunt and uncle. And they were two separate sets of friends. Like they probably knew each other from parties or whatever.
Right. So that is very interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that story.
Thanks for letting it be shared.
There were some things like from Dan's story that I wasn't sure what the deal was. Again, he didn't really mention if his Uncle John passed away suddenly.
Right.
Or if he wasn't doing well. I think that Dan had mentioned that his aunt passed away like a week or two earlier, and then had this dream where his aunt was on the porch rocking and waving, and then his Uncle John showed up. Was his Uncle John sick? I think if his Uncle John is sick in any way, it's not that far-fetched that he could have that dream.
Yeah, it's not as random.
If it was random, if it's random, it's crazy. Right. Unless there was some way that he was like half awake, half asleep that morning, and his parents had gotten the news, and he could like overhear it as he was sleeping.
So I did ask him that, and I think he said it was a phone call, so his mom would have just been like on the phone, unless she repeated like, "Oh my God, Uncle John died." Like he was pretty confident there was no way that he could have overheard it, because I had that same thought when I initially interviewed him.
Yeah. So no, it's a wild story, and that was definitely a very creepy story to hear, especially with that the rocking sound on the porch.
Yeah, rocking chairs can be creepy.
Yeah. But they were having iced tea and seemed like they were having a good time, so.
Yeah, at least they're enjoying themselves.
There you go.
And then we had the famous Abe Lincoln dream we shared in episode 18, Psychic Senses, Part 1. And there's one super famous example of a precognitive dream, which is a very famous dream from
Abe Lincoln?
Correct. So for those of you unfamiliar, 3 days prior to his assassination, President Abraham Lincoln relayed a dream he had, and he told his wife and a few other friends. And according to Ward Hill Layman, one of the friends who was present for the conversation, this is what the president said.
About 10 days ago, I retired very late. I had been up waiting for important dispatches from the front. I could not have been long in bed when I fell into a slumber, for I was I soon began to dream. There seemed to be a death-like stillness about me. Then I heard subdued sobs as if a number of people were weeping. I thought I left my bed and wandered downstairs. There the silence was broken by the same pitiful sobbing, but the mourners were invisible. I went from room to room. No living person was in sight, but the same mournful sounds of distress met me as I passed along. I saw light in all the rooms. Every object was familiar to me. But where were all the people who were grieving as their hearts would break? I was puzzled and alarmed. What could be the meaning of all this? Determined to find the cause of state of things so mysterious and so shocking, I kept on until I arrived at the East Room, which I entered. There I was met with a sickening surprise. Before me was a catafalque, on which rested a corpse wrapped in funeral vestments. Around it were stationed soldiers who acted as guards. And there was a throng of people gazing mournfully upon the corpse, whose face was covered, others weeping pitifully. "Who is dead in the White House?" I demanded of one of the soldiers. "The president," was his answer. "He was killed by an assassin." Then came a loud burst of grief from the crowd, which woke me from my dream. I slept no more that night, and although it was only a dream, I had been strangely annoyed by it ever since.
So first off, we want to thank Steve DeMonico. He was the voice actor for us. Our Abe Lincoln did an amazing job. And I'll say we're talking about dreams and precognitive dreams or dreams that are in themselves a death omen, whether it be a banshee or someone handing you an envelope with a photo of a person who dies, or seeing a deceased loved one come out on the porch before you know that they have passed away, or even in Abe Lincoln's case, prophesizing your own death. All of them are omens of death, but they are all dreams, and dreams are just such a tough thing.
Right.
There's always a little bit of doubt with dreams. Is it just your mind being weird? Is it your subconscious? You can have a dream like Abe Lincoln had where you prophesize your own death, and then you can have a dream where you're a polar bear tap dancing with Michael Jackson on an iceberg in space, and it is just pure nonsense. So it's hard to say what's true, what's supernatural, and when is a dream just an odd dream, or when is there a coincidence?
Yeah.
And on that note, we have only yet scratched the surface on death omens. So, Axe, I'm going to ask you and all of the listeners out there to be patient for a minute here, because we will continue our exploration into death omens in our next episode, part 2 of Death Omens, where we're going to dig a little deeper and look into some more examples of omens of death.
On the next episode of The Brothers Mysterium.
That really took me to a whole nother level of chilling.
My auntie phoned me last Sunday and we had a long chat as usual, and during it, she casually told me that she'd seen a ghost in her flat.
It's like as soon as her grandma passes away, everything stops.
His replacement ring turned his finger black in the shape of a wedding band.
It is an unbelievable story.
He wants to say something, so we all kind of stop and listen. And out of the blue, he just says, "You know, the angel of death visited me last night," and he pointed to his window.
Thanks for scaring the shit out of me today.
We want to thank Steve DeMonico. He was the voice of Abe Lincoln for our story there. Also from the Abe Lincoln story, The music you heard was the Battle Hymn of the Republic by William Steff and Lincoln's Funeral March, written by William Walsifer. The other music from this episode comes from purpleplanet.com. That's purple-planet. Our theme song is by the band The Never Grin. You can get in touch with us through many different ways. Perhaps facebook.com/The Brothers Mysterium. On Twitter or Instagram at Mysterium Bros. You can email us at thebrothersmysterium@gmail.com if you have a question, a concern, a story of your own you'd like to share, or a topic you want to suggest. We love hearing from you. And as always, we just want to say thank you for listening to us.